So I would like to officially welcome everybody to this workshop. I'm Julia, the creator of Thrivers, and this is really exciting because it's the workshop where we focus on our wealth, and we do this every month. And it's really great to see women taking action on their financial wealth. So before I introduce our incredible partners, and we have two tonight that are in the virtual wings of this stage, if you're new to Thrivers, welcome. It's so great to see new people here who are taking action to invest in their personal wealth. And also hi to our incredible members. We are a growing tribe, and it's so great to have you in the live session, because the best thing about these sessions is that you get to ask the experts your questions. Hi, I've got a few people that are chatting. Hi there, I think you're from Butley in England, amazing. Yeah, please feel free to say hi and where you're calling from. Some of our regulars know what we do here. So as I've said before, this is a really non-judgmental environment. Your questions are really important. So we have the chat on the right-hand side to write any of your questions there, or we have the Q&A, which just the experts and myself can see, and we'll read it out. We don't say any names, but the most important thing is that you can ask your questions and get them answered. So if you aren't familiar with Thrivers, on our website we have an interview series which is called Answers to Thriving. If you've ever had an idea or you really want to pursue a goal but you just haven't taken action on it yet, really check out those questions, because those Answers to Thriving, because they're from these successful women who have the same fears as all of us. And they really just show, they're really short, quick reads. So if you want an instant injection of motivation for your ambitions, head there and check them out. And on the other side, we have these workshops. So we partner with experts in wellness, wealth, and work who will impart their knowledge and help us to thrive in all areas of our lives. So yeah, if you're calling in from anywhere else, we'd love to know where you're calling from. I know we have some people from Sydney, which is amazing. And I think we have some couple of people from New Zealand, which is awesome. Hi there. It's really great to have you on board. There's a couple of regulars here, so it's really great to see you again. So today, just for a quick overview of the structure, because since 2019, we always start with wellness first. The ethos of Thrivers is to perform to our best. We have to be well. So we're always going to start with some form of wellness, whether it's meditation, yoga, Pilates. We've got all sorts of things happening this year, which is really exciting. So today our wellness section is a meditation. And I'm going to introduce our expert very quickly, but we're going to do 10 minutes of the guided meditation, and then we're going to join Rachel Bursell, we're going to talk about investment, really important. But we thought it was a really great way to start this workshop. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our meditation teacher for today, Lisa Barron. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and it's a real privilege to be a part of this wonderful webinar. It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. And so is it true, so you've been teaching meditation for over 28 years?
I have been, and I've also been a primary school teacher, so I was able to use the meditation to help my pupils achieve their ultimate, the best, fullest of their potential. I've taught parents meditation. I've run workshops for professional people that were dealing with angry young people. I've run meditation programs for corporations. And I've just taught it in little, country women's association halls in small country towns. So it's a really wonderful form of meditation, and it's always free. So it's just given me so much joy to be able to share it with so many people.
Oh, brilliant. So the type of meditation we're doing today, Lisa, is, if I pronounce this right, it's called Sahaja Yoga Meditation?
Yeah, Sahaj Yoga, that's it.
Sahaj Yoga. So could you explain why this type of meditation is particularly good when we're trying to make important decisions, such as the financial ones that we're going to be focusing on today?
It's a very powerful style of meditation. It's ancient, but it's been turned into a very simple method by the founder, Sri Mataji. It's powerful because it awakens an energy that we all have lying dormant within us. And this energy is a mothering energy that nurtures us and brings our whole being into balance. And in order to make any important decisions, we need to have balance. In order to have a happy life, a prosperous life, we need balance. So it's also the only meditation that was able to get funding to do research through the Natural Therapies Unit at the Prince of Wales Hospital. So that's a bit of background so that you know how it sets, this meditation sort of sets itself apart from others. Once you learn to do this meditation, you reach what we call self-realization. It's really simple. But what that does, it puts you in tune with your true self, not what the world is telling us we should do, can't do, mustn't do, but your true inner being so that you can develop your true potential. And when you reach this stage of self-realization, which is simple, you'll have it by the end of the next 15 minutes, you even begin to feel like sensations above the top of your head and the energy flowing from your fingertips. And all of this indicates your state of being, which if you choose to build on it, you'll find it amazing. But for us now, it brings about a state of thoughtless awareness as well. The biggest stress in our lives is always thinking. And whenever we think, we're either working in the past or we're working in the present. But we're not in the future, but we are not in the present moment because it's impossible to form a thought in the present moment. So this helps us make better decisions because you're not being distracted by, maybe what happened last time you tried to do this or by what does that mean for my future. You are in the present moment and you'll literally feel that this is the right decision for me. So all the clutter goes and you're in tune with what is truly best for you in order to reach your full potential. So that's a little bit of that. Sahaj means born within or spontaneous, which is talking about the energy that we all have laying dormant in that sacrum bone. It's awakened spontaneously. You only have to desire it with all your heart and it will be awakened. And yoga, the original meaning of the word yoga was union. So it's that union with your true inner being and also the union with that, all pervading, whatever you want to call it, but that's out there with higher consciousness, inspiration. It's that. So it connects you to that. So
brilliant. Well, I think, it's so popular, especially with the extra addition of, social media and we're getting bombarded from every angle. It's even more important to embrace this meditation. I really need it for one, particularly today. So I can't wait to get started. If anyone's got any questions, just throw them in the chat. But over to you, Lisa. And the time is now 6:53 in Sydney. So I'll check back in 10 minutes. But I'm going to enjoy the yoga. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you. Okay, so in order to awaken this energy, I'm going to ask you first of all to slip off your shoes if you're wearing any. Sit really comfortably. Let your hands relax on your lap with the palms turned upwards. And I'm going to just simply ask you to place your right hand at different centers on the left side of your body. And why we do that is the right side is showing our action and our planning, and the left is our desire. We only need to do this right this moment to awaken this energy. After that, you don't need to repeat this process. So we'll start, and I'll direct you what to do, and I will simply be asking you to repeat some affirmations silently until I ask you to move your hand again and tell you another affirmation. So we'll start with our right hand on the left side of our heart. And just take some slow, deep breaths and just ask the question, am I the spirit? Now move that hand on the left-hand side, the upper section of your abdomen, just below the rib cage. And here we say, Am I my own teacher? Because this is a mothering energy, you can even use the word mother. It's your own personal, nurturing, mothering energy. Am I my own teacher? And then we place the hand where the thigh joins the torso. And here we ask, Mother, please give me true knowledge. Or just please give me true knowledge. Now place the hand back to the upper section of your abdomen and say, I am my own teacher. I am my own master. And just repeat this to yourself. Now place your hand back on your heart and say, I am the spirit. We are not what media, society, people's opinions tell us what we should be. We are the spirit. And just take slow, deep breaths. Now place your hand where your neck and shoulder join and gently turn your head to the right. And say to yourself, I am not guilty. On a subtle level, especially we as women, we are made to feel guilty in a very subtle way. You could have done this, you should have done that. It's so damaging. So just say, I am not guilty. Now place your hand on your forehead and just let your head rest into your hand and just say, I forgive. And now place your hand at the back of your head and let your head rest into the palm of your hand. And only if you feel to, say, if I have made mistakes, please forgive me. You're not asking for external forgiveness. You're asking for your own forgiveness, for yourself. We even use the expression, I can't forgive myself. Now stretch your fingertips back, place them on top of your head where it was the soft bone of your childhood, and just massage the top of your head and ask with all your heart and full confidence, please give me my self-realization. Please give me my self-realization. Now raise that hand a few centimeters above the top of your head. You might even feel heat more than normal. or cooler than normal, but just fix your attention there and then lower your hand and just take slow breaths. If thoughts come, watch them, don't get involved, or simply say, not this thought. And when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes. When you did that, you may have felt different sensations on your hands, and that's all part of this energy beginning to bring your subtle being into balance. So that's it.
Well, thank you, Lisa. That was really, really great. So good after a day of full-on work and things to really just have that moment, that pause, and just even 10 minutes. It's amazing how we don't even allow us. I found we don't allow our time. So
and you only need to do it 5 or 10 minutes, and you know it's something that you may not have felt a great difference then, but if you practice it, you realize that it's like a snowball effect, and you look back and you go, wow, you know, I accomplished so much, or I'm reaching my goals. And as I said to you earlier, it's a joy for me. I tend to lose people from my classes, but the reason I lose them is because they got the job they wanted, they got the transfer they wanted, or they've moved, they've achieved what they desire. So, yeah.
can I ask just why the left-hand side?
Because the left-hand side of that little of our subtle beings is here. It's the feminine side. So it's the side of our desires. And so by doing it on the left-hand side, we're letting this all-knowing energy that's just lying there dormant, that we desire it. So the left-hand side is for, showing that we desire this to happen, and the right-hand side is sort of like that we actively desire. And it's incredible, because why did people call that bone a sacrum bone? They knew that there was something incredible that was there. And why did they call this a fontanelle area, meaning fountain? It's because if we were able to awaken this energy completely, it would be a fountain of cool air. So it's ancient, but we really need it at this point in our evolution, and we certainly need it as women. So it's always free. It's fantastic. It'll transform your life, along with Rachel's advice. And please visit the website. There's meditation. There's a simple hand movement, which is this, that we do to encourage more of that energy to come up. And we do that 3 times. And then we do what we call a bandhan. And to be honest, when I first came to this class, I thought they were crazy. But despite all of my skepticism and wanting to run out, I felt what they said that I would feel. And then I compare it to when people first discovered electricity, they couldn't see it. And people thought that it was dangerous and black magic and, a lot of rubbish. Some people chose to be electricians. Some people wanted to be physicists and understand it. But for all of us, we switch on a light. And that's what Sahaj is. You've switched on the light of your true inner being, this powerful but so subtle mothering energy that does flow now from your fingertips. So these funny hand movements are actually powerful, because it is flowing through your being once you do this. And we did scientifically prove it. So I've probably taken away all the thoughtlessness and filled your head up with, oh my gosh. But
no, that's really, really great. So you've written a book, which I've put a link into the chat for everyone. And you also said a really great app that you recommended for people to download to start their meditation journey. Is that a guided meditation? And also Lisa kindly said if anyone wanted to reach out to her, I've put your email and phone number there.
Great, because I'm more than happy. I can send them like little attachments with more information if they don't want to go and find it all on the website. I'm really happy to do that.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. We're now going to move tonight's focus to, now we're all centered and ready and grounded and ready to make some really important financial decisions. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome financial advisor, financial feminist, and advocate for female financial empowerment. We couldn't ask for a better financial advisor here. Rachel Bursell, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about imparting what is crucial information and enabling everybody to really take control of their financial future.
Rachel, we love what you stand for. And can you explain a bit more about why specifically you focus on women and their finances?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. We've got the gender pay gap. We retire with less superannuation. We're really stuck in a rut, and we need to look after ourselves when it comes to our finances now and in retirement. I moved into financial advice when I became more aware of the inequity surrounding women that they can experience, and it's just something we've really got to embrace and love and learn and take control of our future.
Brilliant. So today's topic, it came out from our audience, and it seems there are a lot of women who have a certain amount of savings but maybe not enough to purchase a house. I know everyone's calling in from different places, but in Sydney it's like ridiculously crazy to get that initial deposit. So then you've got that money there. So there's a bit of like, should we invest? Should we? So it's a really great topic to tackle. And we really feel honored here to have you, Rachel, to cover all the pros and cons for both investment versus shares. So before we kick off, I just want everyone to know that please ask your questions. If anything Rachel says triggers something, just throw it in the chat and I'll get round to them when there's a good point. I know Rachel's going to ask lots of questions in her presentation anyway, but non-judgmental environment. I was terrible at maths at school, and I used to be one of those women who just hoped my finances would work themselves out. But actually this year with Thrivers and partnering with all these amazing female financial advisors, I really believe they have a much more personable approach and make you feel like anyone can embrace it and be empowered and go in a much more positive direction with it. So yeah, over to you, Rachel.
Brilliant. I'll bring up my presentation. Where are we here? So, no. Technology is not my strong point.
Working.
There we go. We've got it. So as Julia has explained, we're going to talk about property and shares, what's right for us, some pros and cons. So you can really get down and have a look and work out what might be right for you. Something will feel good or it won't, and we can go from there and work it out. Again, as Julia said, non-judgmental. And if you've got a question, please feel free to ask. Often, if we wait to the end, then it might slip your mind. I'm more than happy to answer as we go, but also don't feel that you have to hold back. There is no such thing as a silly question in finance. So feel free to ask away. Obviously, this is my disclaimer. The information that I'm going to give you in this presentation is general in nature, so it's not personalized for you, but it's going to give you a broad overview of what you need to know. So obviously, what I want for you at the end of the presentation is for you to feel like you're in a better place to assess, yes, this investment is right for me. I want you to be able to understand the differences and the similarities between property and shares. And we're going to go a little bit into diversification, risk profiling, and liquidity as well, which all sounds terrifying and boring, but I promise it's going to be fun.
Rachel, sorry, can I just interrupt? Are we supposed to see a screen right now? Because we can see a little black.
Okay, it's got, my screen sharing is being paused. Why is my screen sharing? Hang on, let's see.
If it doesn't work, I can always put it on mine. Or do you just need to relaunch it?
Let's see whether I can give it another go. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Perfect.
So it's still up?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Here we go. So ultimately, I want you to gain clarity on the next steps that you need to do to take control of your own financial destiny, because a man is not a financial plan. Very big on that. We own our money. I just wanted to include a little bit about women and money, not to scare you, but just to give you an idea of why it's so important that we take control. So as women, we retire on average with about half the amount of super as men. In the UK, I know that there's the defined benefit schemes, and it's not compulsory like it is here, which can make a huge difference as well. In 2010, 1 in 5 women retired with no super at all. Around 90% of us will retire without adequate savings to be comfortable. We retire earlier than men, and we're in retirement longer. A lot of this has got to do with the gender pay gap. So we get paid less. Our contribution super is less. I know that in my industry, the pay gap's about 21%. So it is tremendous. We take time off to have kids. So it's really important that we have make the money that we have work for us as hard as possible. Everybody's just a tiny bit scared on that. So what can we do? It's not all doom and gloom. I go through the usual suspects, which is budgeting, so important, avoiding dirty debt like credit cards. Afterpay is a big one as well, understanding your super and protecting your wealth, but we need to grow our wealth. So all of you should be able to jot down what your net wealth is, and that is your assets minus your liabilities. So if you either do it now or afterwards, work out everything. So that includes super, your home if you have one, deduct the liabilities, that's your net wealth. So at the end of this presentation, you should be able to put a plan in place to grow that net wealth. Right. So property and shares, what's the difference? A famous US politician said that a woman's best protection is a little money of her own, which is completely true. And that's obviously why you're all here today, because you consider that that's really important, which is fantastic. Okay, so property. I mean, houses are generally easier for us to understand, which is why women tend to invest more in property than in shares. We can see it. If we drive past, we can touch it, providing we're allowed to, if we're the landlord or we've gotten permission. And it's also pretty much seen as a safe investment, particularly in Australia, although the recent declines in property would have highlighted that significantly. The Gold Coast in Queensland and Australia went down about 20%, I believe, or just under. So there's some pretty big numbers happening now, and people are starting to look outside of property. Obviously, there's the things, you know, it can generate an income if you've tenanted it. There is the potential for capital growth. There's tax deductions involved, particularly if you're negative gearing. But that's also subject to government legislation, so don't count on that. The pitfalls, it's a big financial commitment to not only buy a property, but buy an investment property as well. It's not liquid. So if you need the money next week to fund an emergency operation or something, you're not going to be able to get it. It takes a while to sell. They can be costly to maintain. So you've got rates, insurance, maintenance. They're costly to purchase as well. I know the average house price in Sydney is about $1 million. In Canberra, it's about 700,000. And I believe in the UK, in London, it's about 875 as well. So we're pretty much on a par there. And again, as I mentioned, in the Gold Coast, there's a potential for capital loss. I think if you're looking at investing in property, something that I suggest to all of my clients that you do is sit down and work out a budget. It's vital that you do that to calculate how much the property would cost you, particularly if it's negatively geared, and making sure that you've got a cash reserve for that property. That's incredibly important. And then you can use things like income protection in order to support your income, but you need to do that budget. That budget is everything, and as well, calculate it based on interest rates going up a couple of percent. We might not see much this year, but the general consensus is that next year they will go up. So you want to make sure that you can afford it based on those new rates. That's incredibly important. Is there any questions from property?
Yeah, the ones come in.
Yeah.
You said a lot of people they know put absolutely everything they have to get the property of their dreams.
Yeah.
And then they're kind of scrimping and scraping as they go along. I mean, do you see that a lot in your industry?
Oh, absolutely. I had a client come in heartbreakingly who was going through a separation, and they'd purchased properties, borrowed against the equity to purchase a property, and they had to sell them as a result of the divorce, and they lost money on all three of those properties. And so she's got about 130,000 in superannuation. She's 55 years old. She's not going to have enough to buy a new home or fund her retirement. And that is heartbreaking. That's why I'm really big on making sure that you can afford it, that you've got that extra income. Don't go all out. I think that's incredibly important not to do that. Make sure that you have money left over, because emergencies happen. You know, cash reserve is important, all those sorts of things. So just really take care with the consideration. It's an emotional purchase a lot of the time. Put the emotion aside and think about it from a practical point of view. Definitely.
Someone said, do you think it's wise to get a professional to work on your budget with you, or work out your budget?
Absolutely. If it's something that you struggle with, most definitely. Some of the clients that I see for just budgeting advice, they have a poor relationship with money. They might have grown up with not a lot of money, and as a result, it's really hard for them to understand it and manage it. If you've got that issue, then definitely working with a professional. Otherwise, the ASIC Money Smart Budget Planner is fantastic. If you feel that you can download that, go through it, and you're able to manage money comfortably, that's a brilliant option. But if you do have, issues around money and around spending, professional, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Brilliant. What have we got next? Direct shares. I should clarify with this, I've included direct shares and managed funds because they're two very different beasts and they can work really well for some person and not so well for others. So direct shares are something that you purchase on the Australian Stock Exchange. You might see, oh, Commonwealth Bank's trading at $25. That's a bargain. I'm going to buy 50 of them. You put in an order through a broker and you purchase the shares. That's direct shares. Now, as a result of that, it's really easy to transact. You can set up a really cheap account online, put your orders in, no problems. They do generate an income if your shares pay a dividend. Now, some of the blue chips have previously paid big dividends and then decided, oh, we can't actually afford to, so we're not going to. So never account on a dividend being paid to you. Obviously, same as property, potential for capital growth, which is what we all want. Potential for tax deductions, which a lot of people don't realise, is that these dividends come with a franking credit. I won't go into the boring details of tax, but that means that the company's already paid tax on the income that they're giving you. So you get a deduction for that, which is nice. Much smaller capital commitment than property. You could spend $1,000 on direct shares and get yourself a little parcel, which is brilliant. And you can see that capital value on a daily basis. I was saying to Julia that there's grandmas and grandpas that sit in the ASX and they actually watch the price of their shares go up and down during the course of a day. Now, the ASX is open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's a long time to sit there. You'd take a snack for sure. Not something I recommend. Often their retirement is based on, a couple of shares that they bought. It's really heartbreaking to see. I don't recommend that if you buy a share that you feel that you need to look at it every day at the price. It's not healthy, and it's not going to help you. Pitfalls. Significant time investments required. I do recommend buying shares that you understand the companies. That might be these aren't share recommendations, but examples like Woolworths, one of the banks. We all know about the banks. Any companies that you're aware of and you're familiar with are generally a great place to start. As opposed to what we call penny dreadfuls, which are 2 or 3 cent shares. You're taking an absolute punt and you're probably going to lose your money anyway, or you'll make it big. I don't recommend that as a startup for a share. Your income from dividends, as I mentioned, isn't guaranteed. It's not something that's definitely going to happen. An investment property, if your tenant doesn't pay, you can kick them out. You can't go to a company board and say, where's my dividend? Again, there's potential for a capital loss. Your share value might go down. And the capital value, again, is visible on a daily basis. So that's a pro and a con. It's probably a con for our nanny and grandpa sitting in the ASX, but it can also be a positive as well. So I think you've got to balance each of those things out as well. Very similar to property, but also very different as well, particularly with the entry cost. Were there any questions, Julia?
Yes. Would you recommend, you talk about dividends and payouts. Why would you go for a share that doesn't pay dividends? Like, what's the difference?
There's a couple of things with that. Mostly it's because if they're not paying a dividend, they may be expected to provide a really big capital return. So their share price might increase exponentially. That happens with the less popular shares. Companies that are just getting established, they can't pay a dividend straight away, but their price might go up 3 times. So for younger people, capital growth is more important. For older people and retirees, income is far more important. So that's a really crucial thing to factor into your share purchase, if that helps.
Yeah. Do you have any apps you can recommend to budget? Someone's asked.
A budget, well, I always use the ASX one. the ASIC one. I find that's the best one, but you can actually link your bank account with that. So it pulls in all your transactions, and then you can allocate from there, and it'll tell you whether you've overspent or underspent. Otherwise, most of the banks have really good apps too. So whoever you're banking with, just check with them and see. Often, you know, there's some fantastic little budgeting help on there as well. That's probably the best place to start, and they're all free.
Yeah, I actually did a Facebook call out to ask people a while ago before Christmas to see what apps people were using, and Pocketbook came up.
Yes.
That's a really great one. That's one actually I ended up using. I think in the US they said Mint was really good.
Yeah. There's a lot of options. Just depends what you want to pay. And budgeting and certain setouts floats everybody's boat very differently. Some people like it all neatly in a row, and that's probably why I like the ASIC one. Other people like things that look better. It's entirely up to you. I'm happy to put together a list and email it to you to send to everybody later if that's something people are interested in as well.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
So is that clear with everyone? Is everyone, we don't know how across shares people understand. So if there's anything you don't understand or, please let us know, because I'm only understanding a little bit of this because I started a year ago trying to educate myself.
And it's really hard. And that's why I generally don't necessarily recommend direct shares as an investment, particularly for people starting out, because you want to look at financials, you want to look at price to earning ratios, you want all these sorts of things that generally put us to sleep, including me. I don't do any of my share research. I have a broking firm that do that for me. I leave it to the experts. So yeah, it is a real-time commitment there. But if you love it.
Rachel, sorry, do you have to be interested in shares to be able to invest in it, or can you just be thinking that's a really smart way to invest?
I mean, it is a smart way to invest, but to do the research and to select an appropriate share, I'd suggest that you would want to be interested in it and interested in the machinations of a company, and all those sorts of things as well. I think direct shares is definitely, you've got to be a bit passionate about it and wanting to learn in that respect.
Okay.
Brilliant. All right. Managed funds. This is the last thing. These are probably my favourites. Managed funds are a brilliant way to get some exposure to the share market, but you don't have to make the big, ugly decisions. You're able to diversify across a wide range of asset classes. So within a managed fund, you could have some property, some Australian shares, international shares, fixed interest, all the main asset classes that I'll briefly touch on, you can combine in a managed fund, which is fantastic. And again, you're accessing that diversification. I've got clients that saw me recently that had 5,000 they wanted to invest. We sat down and did their risk profile, and I chose about 15 fund managers that would fit in with that. And I think the fees overall for them, the admin fees, are about $50 a year. So they are pretty inexpensive in that case. And again, you can make regular contributions. So you contribute $100 a month if you want to, just constantly buying in at a much cheaper rate. And that's easier than direct shares as well, when you've got to buy a parcel of shares. In this case, you just pop the money in, they sort it out. Less paperwork. We all love less paperwork. With property and direct shares, you'll have to keep everything. You know, you've got all your tax deductions, and you've got your dividend statements, you've got all that sort of stuff. And if you've got different shares, you've got to take them to your accountant, and it's a pest. With managed funds, you get one statement. They send it to you, it's lovely, and you trot that off to your accountant, or you do it yourself online. Very simple. Again, a smaller capital commitment. You've got an experienced team of experts. They're making the decision on your behalf. So instead of you having to do PE ratios and financials and am I interested in this company, someone else makes the hard decisions. A lot of the time, they own enough of the company to be on the board, so they can push them to make decisions that are right for them, which is fantastic. So you palm off that responsibility. And again, they're generally liquid. So you should be able to normally get your money out within a week of putting your withdrawal in, which is really obviously important if, again, you need an operation or something and you need to get those funds out. Reasonably easy to access. Pitfalls, again, flip side of the coin. You don't have control of the investment decision. You can't ring them up and say, within your top 10 holdings, I want you to have X, Y, and Z. They'll tell you where to go. They make the decisions. You choose the fund you want to invest in, whether it be Australian or international shares, they do the rest. Again, your income from dividends isn't guaranteed. Fund managers pay an income as well, as an aside, so you should know that. Potential for capital loss too. And this is a really important one. Managers can freeze withdrawals. You'll all possibly, I mean, it was 10 years ago, remember the GFC. Financial Armageddon, that was a complete meltdown. Everybody wanted to get their money out. And so fund managers went, okay, we can't do that. We've lost too much money. We're going to freeze withdrawals. So you weren't able to take your money out. That's very rare. And it is generally in the riskier funds, but it is something that you probably need to be aware of. If you've watched the movie The Big Short, it's got Brad Pitt, which is always a draw card, although he is bearded. It's got a bunch of really great actors in it. Margot Robbie. That explains the GFC beautifully. Margot Robbie is sitting in a bath while she talks about mortgage-backed securities, but that'll give you a great insight. So if you are wanting to dip your toe in, watch The Big Short, absolutely. Any questions on that, Julia, that I can answer?
Has anyone got any questions? I know we had one before, which was about if you're thinking of buying a property for like in a 5-year kind of plan, so you have this savings that's building up, would you recommend investing in shares while you to kind of get more interest on that until you're ready to buy the house?
If you're looking at 5 years, probably not. I'm a little more cautious in that respect, but you know, if we did have another GFC and your funds drop by 40%, there's your house deposit gone. You can look at fixed interest. So instead of just having it sitting in a savings account, perhaps look at it in some, you know, higher paying term deposits and things like that, mix them around, but you do expose yourself. I mean, you could make 12% per annum, which is what we've just recently done, but you could lose it all. So it depends on how comfortable you are with that risk.
So it would be more like a 10-year.
Yeah, 10 years you'd be fine. Women generally return about 2% more than men on their shares, and that's because we tend to buy and hold. We have less emotion when it comes to that, whereas men, I won't go into the biology, but there's testosterone and cortisol, and it gets stressed when they see the price go down and they sell and make a loss, whereas we're like, no, we can see it's happening. We're just going to leave it there. We've bought for the long term. So on average, we do better than men. But most share traders are male, so go figure that one.
So it's worth, I think we talk about this, it's worth doing the homework and investing that time up front and then just letting them
absolutely
bring in the money.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Set and forget. Buy and hold is a big thing for me. Most of my clients have 20 years to retirement, so we've got that luxury of doing that. But investment time horizon is a massive part of risk profiling as well that I always go into with my clients. You know, how long do you want to hold it for? How much income do you need? How would you be comfortable if the share market dropped like the GFC? Some clients pushed the panic button and said, particularly in Australia, and said, no, get my money out now. Others said, let's just wait and see. The prices went back up to what they were within a relatively short time frame. So it's whether you're comfortable sitting it out or not. So that's a reasonably big one to consider. So I guess to bring it all to the end, I love referencing investment and risk profile to ice cream. So if everybody is aware of Neapolitan, I don't know how much they sell it anymore. It was lost its popularity, I think, for a bit. But I like to explain diversification as Neapolitan ice cream. You've got a little bit of everything in there. You've got some chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. At the end of the day, it's all doing what it needs to do, and you've got a full box. If you take one of the scoops out, if you take all the chocolate out, you've got an imbalance and you've got some issues if someone else wants the chocolate. So you need to have it balanced, take it evenly out. So how do I determine what Neapolitan is best for my clients? That's based on risk profiling. So as you can see on the screen, you've got expected risk and expected return. So low on the bottom is cash. So if you stash that in envelopes in your safe or your linen cupboard, if you're my nan, that's what you're going to get, pretty much next to nothing. Particularly at the moment, you virtually, if it's in a cash account, you're not going to get any interest at all. And then it's subject to inflation risk. So again, that's a thing for another day, where your cash may not keep up with inflation. Choc Top's $5 now. In 10 years time, or 5 years time probably, it's $10. You pull the cash out of your envelopes and you're at a loss. So there you got that. Further up you go, the little dots, the further up they are, generally the higher the risk, the higher the return. I've got property and shares underneath each other, but they're pretty much the same at the moment. They've returned the same amount. They've generally lost a little bit as well. So they're on the riskier side. So how comfortable you are with that risk dictates your return. If you're retiring in 5 years or you need your money in 5 years, I wouldn't say invest up here in the shares. You want to be down around the fixed interest area. If you're, look, I want to buy and hold it and not even think about it, not looking at the ASX website, then you pop up in the shares bracket. It entirely depends on what's right for you and what feels good for you. I do a lot of psychometric testing with my clients where I ask a whole pile of questions and then I add up the results. This is a very simplistic way of explaining it, but it should sum it up. Any questions from that? Can be
yeah, we've got a couple.
Beautiful.
What would be the minimum time you recommend to invest shares for?
Oh, at least minimum 5 years, minimum, preferably about 10. I'm really big on a set and forget. With managed funds and my clients, I do tend to buy and sell the managed funds as things can pop up, as fund managers change and things like that. But that's a very hands-on approach. For the average person that just wants to get into the share market, pick a blue chip, pick something that works for you, set and forget, definitely.
And then leading on from that, would you say if you were like talking about having something nice for when you retire, would you ever recommend saying, oh, we'll invest what you have now in shares, and then if you want to buy a property 5 to 10 years, then starting again so you can diversify a bit?
Yeah, diversification is king. So I would recommend, yes, looking at that, but still make sure that you've got the cash reserve. I think it's incredibly important that, you might have 5,000 in your bank account and you think, oh, that's great, I'm going to invest in shares. If that's your only balance in your bank account, really have a think about that decision, work out what your expenses are and go, okay, maybe I should only invest 2,000 and keep that 3,000 in my bank account. So you don't want to put all your eggs in the one basket. You want a bit of diversification. That is easier with a managed fund than with direct shares or with property, because you can have property within managed funds as well, commercial, residential. You can even hold things like gold, commodities. You can buy physical gold within a managed fund if you want to, US dollars, all those sorts of things. Diversification is key. Don't go and buy 3 properties and don't go and put all your money into shares. Mix it up a bit.
Okay, brilliant. And someone's asked, is there a better time of year to purchase shares?
Not generally, no. It can go up and down. Often the markets can tend to have a little bit of a run in October. But having said that,
sorry.
When they go up, sorry.
All right.
In October. It depends on as well on things like when reporting season is. So when everybody tells us how well their shares did or how badly. If you're wanting to look at it even on a case-by-case basis, have a look at a share like Commonwealth Bank. What happens is that when it goes what they say ex-dividend, so when the dividend is paid, share price generally drops a little bit after that. for maybe a few days. But that's something to look at as well. But over the course, generally not everybody might get a bit excited around January because it's a new year. It's all very emotional based more than anything. But yeah, I'd say there's no particular time when to buy. Buy when you've got the funds and when you feel comfortable, you've done your research.
And what's the minimum can you buy shares with?
Oh, but look, you don't want to have too small a parcel, because then if you want to sell it, someone might not want to buy that tiny amount. So I generally, for a bigger company, I'd say you'd be looking at least 1,000. But they do have shares that I've mentioned before called penny dreadfuls. Quite indicative of what it is. Things like marijuana stocks were considered penny dreadfuls. Some of them have gone up exponentially in price. Others haven't so much. You can buy a much smaller packet there. You would only want to put in maybe $500. You don't want to take too many punts on those. But yeah, package entirely depends on the cost per share.
What is a great way to, if you're new to the shares market, which kind of shares are great to kind of dabble with if you like?
Oh, I think it's whatever you're interested in. It's a company that, if it's a company that you need to be passionate about, maybe that's retail, maybe that's infrastructure like Transurban, their share price has done very well. If you're interested, you might be interested in building roads and bridges and all that sort of stuff. So pick your interest first, really base it on that, as opposed to what Uncle Bernie's recommended at Christmas dinner, which can be Bitcoin, and well, that's been a disaster. So don't take just the word of someone at dinner, at parties, which I see so much. Someone says, oh, I bought this share and it's fantastic. They haven't told you when they bought it, what they bought it for, and how much they bought it for. So pick something that you like, that you're passionate about, and do your research from there. That'll make it much easier.
Yeah, and it'll make it much more interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Buy a bit of DJs. If you like David Jones, mind you, retail's going down the basement. But look, if you support DJs or you shop at Woolies all the time, go for that.
And I know we talked about micro investing. Could you explain a bit about that?
It is. Micro investing, there's apps like Raiz, R-A-I-Z, where you can pick your risk profile. So it does require a little bit of knowledge on your behalf, whether you're a balanced investor or a growth investor. And you can start it with as little as $10. And what they generally do is make a regular contribution, but you can also you link it to your bank account. So say you spent 99 cents at Coles, you can round up that extra 1 cent into your Raiz account, which you can't do any other way. There are some caveats to that, and that is, I found that the Raiz fees, you generally need to have $200 in there for it to be anywhere near cost effective. But once you've got past that, I have it myself, and I've picked their socially responsible risk profile. So they invest in a lot of index funds. I think I've had it for about 12 months and it's returned maybe 3.8%, which is not too bad. That's better than cash in my bank account. It's better than fixed interest. Share market has gone down, so that's why that's not as high as it could be. But that's a great way to dip your toe in without a significant commitment. Like I said, I started mine, I put $15 a month in, and I round up my expenses, and it's brilliant. I look at it more often than I should, I will admit, taken my own advice. But it's a really fun way of seeing at the share market and looking at risk profiles.
Someone said, do you pay tax on shares annually as well as a lump when you sell them?
No. Until you realise that gain. So when you sell the shares, you don't pay any capital gains tax on it until that point in time. Capital gains tax is again a very tricky area, and there are investments that you can put money into where if you leave them for a certain period of time, they end up being tax-free if you withdraw the funds. But that's a whole other kettle of fish. But no, don't pay tax on it. You pay tax on the dividend, so you've got to declare that. That's part of your marginal tax rate. but you don't pay capital gains tax until you sell it.
Okay. So for people who, if they're feeling a bit nervous about getting into the shares market, you know, like you're saying, if you went to a professional, but then you're thinking, oh my gosh, if I go to an expert, I'm going to have to commit myself to an ongoing amount. Can you do it so you would just get that one-off advice and pay the one-off and then not feel like you're trapped in?
Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Our industry is extremely regulated. So we provide a statement of advice if we recommend anything to a client. We'll do our full due diligence, all that sort of thing. My client questionnaires are 60 pages, so they're pretty long. But you can just pay a one-off fee, get the recommendations, and then go and do your own thing. A lot of my clients choose to do that, particularly the ones that are investing smaller amounts. If you've got when I'm talking sort of 200,000-300,000 and more like superannuation, yes, then having someone manage that for you on an annual basis is a good thing. But if you've just got a little bit that you want to invest in a managed fund or direct shares, much easier way of doing it. It's not a huge financial commitment. Having said that, everybody charges different fees. So what Joe financial advisor down the road charges, I have no idea. He's got to pay for his suit.
Yeah.
So that's the sum total for me. There's some details there if anybody wants to ask me any questions. My door's always open. My clients know that. Anybody that comes to see me knows that. I'm more than happy to answer questions. Obviously, I can't say you should go and buy a BHP or you should go and buy a Commonwealth Bank, but I can always answer questions as they pop up. That's not a problem at all, particularly around budgeting too. That's very easy for me to answer in a general advice manner.
Someone said, when you are thinking about investing, do you have to be willing to risk it all, or like what kind of mindset do you go in with?
You do have to be in that mindset, but that's where risk profiling comes into play, and that's where seeing an advisor can help, because I'll invest it according to your risk profile. If you're not comfortable with taking a huge amount of risk, what I'll do is I'll put some in cash. Usually some of my clients' money's in fixed interest and some's in different amount of shares. So you can pretty much guarantee that you're not going to lose all your money in that respect. Whereas if you invested in a single share on its own, yes, you have to be prepared for that to happen. Absolutely.
Yeah. So someone's just said, leading on from that, with you only investment you can afford to lose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. If you're investing it hoping to, to double your money because you need to, you may as well go and put it on black at the casino, really. It's that's what I'd say to my clients. Only invest what you can afford to lose, but it's the same with property as well. You have to go in with the mindset that you have the potential to lose money, as clients have been doing recently, particularly apartments on the Gold Coast. So yeah, it's got to be that mindset. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, if anyone's got any more questions, please let us know. So yeah, I was thinking with the housing, I don't know, I think it's the same in London and in New York. It's so tempting at the moment. You want to invest in property, but you're paying a rent that the mortgage is going to be more than your rent. So then you're looking at buying a property. And I mean, again, if you're going to invest in that way with property where you're leasing it out, I mean, is that obviously it's the same risk, and there's a lot of research that needs to go into that. But again, I guess a financial advisor, there's no harm in asking for help and empowering yourself. It's to get these important investments underway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, with property, you've got to take into account if there's, 1 or 2 weeks changeover between tenants, how is that going to impact your cash flow? There's all those sorts of considerations. They're often people that, they don't tend to think about. Like, I recommend for investment owners that you have a separate cash reserve to pay for any expenses that pop up with the investment property in case you personally can't afford them. A lot of considerations, particularly with investment property.
Do you find with women versus men, because Do you find that women are more likely to buy the houses they want to live in, and men are more likely to want to just buy something out somewhere else just to...
Absolutely. That's so true. Women tend to put a lot more thought into things, and it's true. That's why we're better investors, well, with shares anyway. The risk we face is that we can take so long to think about the decision that we might miss out. So yeah, the rise of the female investor is pretty significant at the moment. So yeah, incredibly important, but that's often what happens with women in property. Yeah.
That's interesting. Someone said, if the property market in the Gold Coast is falling, is that a good time to buy, or is it likely to continue falling?
Oh, that's definitely a question for the real estate agents up there and what they see. I mean, in Canberra, for example, agents here are saying, look, we're seeing property values fall, yet according to the research that's being done, they're going up. I think it's a matter of looking at the right place, the rental yield that you're going to get. Talk to a buyer's agent. I often find they're quite good, not property spruikers, the ones that are paid to recommend a certain property or they get a commission. Always ask if anybody gets a commission from recommending an investment property. Well away, don't do it. But buyer's agents are a fantastic resource because they know the local area. So if you're not living there, definitely chat to a buyer's agent for sure.
Where can you find a buyer's agent?
Oh, they're online. I've got a few in Canberra that I absolutely love for my clients. I'll find out. I'm more than happy to look at everybody. If you let me know people's states, I can find one that I would trust in each area.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that about the investment, because I've been to like free seminars on it was buying in the Gold Coast, and literally had everyone hooked in the room that they're next going to invest in the Gold Coast because it was a big sales thing.
Oh, absolutely. It was one of those things that my client that lost all their money in the Gold Coast was in, but you get excited and they make it all sound beautiful and sexy and you think, oh, I've got to have this is great, and then you end up doing your dough. So proper research, don't let anybody talk you into anything, and if they're getting a commission, run.
Okay. Good to know. Good advice. So Rachel, you said you're offering a complimentary consultation to chat. If anyone wants to do a one-on-one, you can do it via Zoom. Absolutely. So what's the best way for them to get in contact? Can they find it on your website?
They can, either through, probably best through email, or give me a call, or on the website there is a section on there that you can send an inquiry, and we can get that and schedule a time that's good for you. I do have a lot of clients interstate at the moment. Perth is a challenge because they're 3 hours behind. But, it's just a chance to chat about, you might have questions about your superannuation. How do I look at my statements? What am I looking for? Things like that. I'm more than happy to answer during that complimentary consultation. Okay,
brilliant. So another question, just got a couple more minutes. Do people get commission for recommending shares the same as property?
No. Well, I don't. Any financial advisor doesn't. We don't receive any commissions anymore. There are still commissions on life insurance, but that's it. Putting funds, recommending a managed fund and a direct share, there's no commissions on our behalf at all.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. That was really brilliant. It's so good to, as I said before, to have a financial advisor, female one, that's so approachable as you, and really feel like there's no silly questions to ask.
Oh no, not at all. And I know it's heavy content and it can be a lot, so if any questions pop up at midnight when you're thinking about what you're going to do with your savings, I'm more than happy to answer them. Obviously not at midnight, send me an email, but anything that crops up, it is very heavy, so feel free to ask.
And we're talking about the plan, and just for the UK people, for their benefit, next month we are partnering with a UK financial advisor, and we're going to actually be talking about a plan, because it seems like they work hand in hand, understanding what your financial goals are, whether it's property or shares or both, as you said, and how you're going to make that happen. And once you kind of have your life plan, which is we've been doing in Thrivers, and then you have the financial plan, to support it. So yeah, she's another really great woman who is also very personable, and it'll be a nice go-to for the UK people on here. But yeah, it's Australian.
That's fantastic, because their system's very different to ours. You know, we've got this 9.5% that goes into superannuation, whereas they don't have that in the UK. So having a plan there is super important. That's brilliant.
Oh, someone said, slightly more morbid question, what happens to shares if you die?
They form part of your estate. So if you've got a will, which hopefully everybody does, really important, they will be distributed from there. So say you want them to go to Uncle Bob because he's recommended this share that's made you a fortune, you pop that in your will and they'll go to him, but otherwise they just go to your estate.
And if you have no will, where do your shares go?
Well, then it's intestate, and it goes, it's a very convoluted subject. It's then divided up. So if you've got beneficiaries and you don't have a will, it has to go through the trustee, and then they distribute it according to that. You go to court and all this sort of stuff. Someone put a claim in for the estate. It gets very ugly. It gets very time consuming and costly, and you don't know if your assets are going to go where they want to go, where you want them to go. So super important to have a will. Everything revolves around that. No one has a will though.
Okay, thanks.
It's scary, particularly if you've got kids. You have to have a will.
Yeah. Okay. That's really, really good.
It's probably a topic for another time.
I think so. Yeah. What's great though is when I talk to the financial advisors, you know, we hear these things, you see them, you might read them in the paper and you think, oh, those things, they're just trying to sell me a will or whatever. But actually, they might seem boring, but they're really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're looking at the things on the television, you know, these real insurance or funeral bonds, do your research with those, because they're pretty shifty, and you have to have pretty much life insurance is the only thing they're going to pay. If you're looking at anything else, not worth the paper it's written on. So yeah, do your research in that. But again, topic for another time.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So yeah, thank you so much, Rachel. I'm just going to put your website in the chat so people can quickly copy that. And yes, so next week we've got Supercharge Your Gut Brain Access, and we're starting with a yoga for digestion. I'm actually going to be with the expert. We're going to be filming from a beautiful kitchen, so we really can't wait for that.
Super exciting. Looking at my house. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I know. It came about this, the expert that we're partnering with, she's got some very wealthy clients. So she's offered her amazing kitchen, which I'm really glad. I'm so glad we're not doing it in our kitchen. It's a little bit dark. But it should be really great. And thank you. Verna just said thank you. Thank you so much to our participants for coming. That was really good. And for your amazing questions. They were really, really great. Really, it's really nice when people ask those questions and make the most out of this session.
Thank you. Yeah.
Other people are often thinking the same thing. So thank you for coming forward with those. And as Rachel said, if you've got any other questions you want to reach out to her, you can find her on her website, and she's offering the free consultation. So yeah, take advantage of it, because you're all about empowering women with their finances, and it's really important. So,
and thank you to everybody for making the time to put their finances first. It makes me so excited to see women wanting to take control. I love it. So well done to everybody that has attended tonight. I love it.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you, Rachel. We'll definitely keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And thank you to Lisa. I can see you're still online. Thank you so much for the meditation. That was such a great way to start on this topic, with everything else going. And it's a bit of an experiment as well, trying to bring in the wellness. But I really believe it's really important, especially with finance, where it's one where we have to focus, whether you're just waking up in the morning or you've just got to try and stop thinking about the day. I think it's the perfect way to really get grounded. It sounds like a really great, quick 5-minute to 10-minute meditation that we can start doing every day to get really clear on our goals. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you. Keep going for your goals and believing in yourself, ladies, and really hope to see you next time, if next week maybe. Bye for now.